Shalom Uvracha. This evening we're privileged to study together Parashat Vayikra. We begin this week the third book of Moses, the book of Leviticus, Sefer Vayikra. And with your permission, I would like to focus on the sentence that begins the second chapter of the book, chapter 2, verse 1. V'nefesh ki takriv karban mincha laHashem. When an individual will donate a flower offering to God, mincha. The flower offering is the least expensive of all of the offerings that were offered in the temple, in the sanctuary. However, the term that's used in our text is strikingly more impressive than the words that are used in all other voluntary offerings. V'nefesh ki takriv. V'nefesh. What does nefesh mean? When a soul offers this meal offering. The rabbis teach in Masechet Menachot, if you're interested, it's page 104b. Amar Rabbi Yitzhak, Ma nishtanet mincha shenemar ba nefesh? Why is it that of all of the voluntary offerings, the only time we find the word nefesh, soul, when a soul offers this donation, why only by korban mincha? Why not by the other offerings? Why doesn't it say ish ki yakriv, adam ki yakriv? Why nefesh? And the Gemara teaches, Amar Kadosh Baruch Hu, Mi darko lavi mincha. God says, which type of person brings a flower offering? Ani, a poor person, a destitute individual. So the humble, poor person can't afford anything else. He brings a mincha. Ma'aleh ani alav ki ilu hikriv nafsho lefanai. God says he's bringing an offering. To me, it's not just another offering. To me, it's as if he gave up his entire soul, his entire being, his nefesh. V'nefesh ki takriv. It's a soulful donation because it's given with his total being. When God sees our offerings, when God considers our donations, when God judges our actions, it's not merely a quantitative measurement that's significant. The last Mishnah in Masechet Menachot already teaches that in our Torah section, in our parasha, we find the identical phraseology, Ishei Reach Nichoach, regarding the most expensive sacrifices, as well as the simplest sacrifices. The teaching, according to Menachot 110, Echad HaMarbeh, V'Echad HaMam'it, U'Bilvad She'yichavein Libo L'Shamayim. God doesn't measure how expensive the offering was. Doesn't matter how big it was. The Kavanat Halei, that's what's Koveah. How much of your heart is being put into it? The offering of the poor is no less significant than the wealthiest gifts from a perspective of God. The teaching of Rabbi Yitzchak goes a step further. It's beyond that. In a certain sense, the karban offering of the struggling destitute is on a level that's higher than the other sacrifice. It's a level beyond. It's a nefesh level. It is a sacrifice of his or her soul. The Midrash on our parasha relates a story of a Kohen, priest, who did not merit to comprehend the greatness of the self-sacrifice of the poor. He thought to assess sacrifices on a different scale, not the one that we're studying this evening. The Midrash teaches, Vayikra Rabbah, Gimel, paragraph Hey, Ma'aseh b'isha hat. There was once this woman, Shehevia Kometz Shel Solet. She brought a little tiny offering of flour, fine flour. A little flour, Kometz. Kometz is like a tiny, almost microscopic, amount of flour. That's an offering to God. Vayikra mevazeh aleha. And the Kohen, who was in charge of the sacrificial order in the temple, was disgracing her. That's a sacrifice to God. V'amar, this is what they're bringing as sacrifices. This is a korban. How much is here to eat? What could you eat of this? How much of this can you offer? There's nothing here. It's a kometz. It's a tiny amount. This is the midrash on our parsha. Kohen b'chalom. And then the Kohen has some kind of dream. I don't know what dream means. Vision, insight. Al tevazeh aleha. Don't disgrace this woman, because this woman's gift is ki'ilu nafsha ikriva. It's as if she was giving her soul. Why is she bringing such a small amount of flour? Why is she bringing such a tiny offering? Because she's poor. The poor person that's doing it with his heart. The poor person that's doing it with her heart. It's a nefesh ki takriv. This very notion is emphasized in Psalm 22. Tehillim Kaf Bet, Kaf Hey, where we read, Ki lo baza v'lo shikatz enut ani v'lo histir panav mimenu uv'shav'o elav shamea. Psalm 22, for God never despises nor abhors the lowliness of the poor. Don't look down at the poor because they can't afford that which the wealthy individual can. God never hides the divine face from the poor person. And when he cries to God, God listens and responds. So we're sensitive to the enut ani, to the affliction of the poor, to the lowliness of the poor, to the difficulty of the poor, to the struggling nature of the poor. Just a few minutes travel from where we're sitting. Baruch Hashem, we live very close to the Kotel. I believe the Kotel is the most often visited site here in the Holy Land. Is that true? I don't know. If comments from the kitchen, I don't know. Maybe. Yes, is that true? What? I know it's true in Eretz Israel. I don't know. Surely, I think it's the number one site in Israel. Just a few minutes away from where we live here, Baruch Hashem, in Yerushalayim, is the Kotel HaMaravi, the Western Wall. And it always intrigued me as to why the Western Wall. Manish Tana, why is it the Western Wall that survived more than all the other walls? I assume there's a Western Wall, there's an Eastern Wall, a Northern Wall, a Southern Wall. And I remember hearing many, many times an ancient Agadah. I can't tell you the exact nature of the source. This is not in the, as far as I know, it's not in the classical midrashim. But there is some kind of teaching that I've heard so many times in my life, and I'd like to share it. It seems that there are many ancient explanations as to why specifically the Western Wall, more than any other of the walls of the temple area, is the one which survived. Hinei ze omed achar kotlenu. The presence of God. Achar kotlenu. There's something about that special kotel. Me'olam no zaza shchina mikotel ha'maravi. What is about this kotel ha'maravi? Allow me, please, to share one explanation. Our kotel, the kotel ha'maravi, is the kotel of the poor. It is the kotel ha'evyoni. It's the kotel of the poor people. You see, when that area was built, that particular side of the Temple Mount, according to this Agadah, the kotel wall was built by the poor. Each part of the temple area walls was built by a different faction, by another faction of the people. The northern, the southern, the eastern sides. were all built by hired workers who were employed to construct the walls. But the Western Wall, there were no hired workers to build the Western Wall because they couldn't afford workers. This was the wall of the Aniyim. This was the Kotel HaEvyoni. HaKotel HaMa'arivi ala b'chelkam shel ha'aniyim lo yachlu laharshot la'atzmam l'skor po'alim u'ba'alei melacha al manat shehalalu ya'avdu b'shvilam v'lachein tarchu v'amlu al b'niyato b'mo yideihem. They put their whole being into it. They built it themselves. The poor people put their blood, sweat, and tears into the Kotel. According to Agadot Eretz Yisrael, an ancient Agadah legend teaches that at the time of the destruction, heavenly angels descended and spread their wings on the Kotel and proclaimed the following: Kotel zeh avodatam shel aniyim le'olam lo yehareh. This Kotel, this is the product of the poor. This will never be destroyed. So very often in life, we encounter various forms of gifts, and we have to appreciate not only the nature of the gift, but the amount of thought, the amount of heart that went into it. One of our daughters, thank God, this past Shabbat, was kind enough to make us a special cake. Now, with all due respect, I'm sure I've tasted cakes that are maybe a little tastier than this cake. But she said to us, I don't want to mention her name because it's too public for that. But she said, "Listen, Abba, listen, Ima. I don't know if the cake is so good, but I put my whole heart into the cake. So that was good enough for us, right? So we ate the cake. So in a certain sense, there is no cake that's tastier than that cake because the whole heart is in the cake. What everybody else has flour in the cake, I don't know, sugar in the cake, oil in the cake. If you ever have a cake that's made with a heart, nefesh, the most delicious cake we've ever tasted, in history. You ever have a child come home and they draw you a painting because they love you, so they're going to draw you a picture, and this picture is beyond all pictures, right? You don't even understand the symbolism of the picture. It's like even those who study various themes in art, they can't even explain the depth of this picture. But what's so beautiful about the picture? Because it was made from the heart, right? It was a nefesh ki takriv kind of experience. The Gemara points out that there are 5 different types of menachot offerings: solet, mahvat, barheshet, chalot, rekikim. 5 types of menachot. Amar Rabbi Yitzchak, ma nishtaneit mincha shene'emar ba 5 minei tigun halalu. Why only the mincha offering? So many variations of sacrifices. Mashal lemelech basar v'dam she'asa lo ohavav seuda v'yodea bo shehu ani. Amar lo aseh li min 5 minei tigun k'dei she'ehaneh mimcha. When you love someone and they can prepare only a limited menu, you provide variations of that same menu because I want to really enjoy your products. We have that for the entree and the main course and maybe dessert and maybe this type and that type, and we'll eat one type this evening and another type the next evening. That's why Hashem chose, because God loves the mincha. God loves the poor. Karov Hashem, the nishbarei lev. As we study in Tehillim, God is ever so close to those who have broken hearts. So many varieties of the forms of the food of the poor to forge levels of special connection between God and the poor. May we all emulate the ways of God, being ever so sensitive to the poor and appreciating their energies, appreciating their gifts on the levels beyond, because their gift is the gift of v'nefesh ki takriv. Thank you so much for listening. Yirmiyahu ben Kriva Nechama ve'et Sarah Shiriel bat Lorraine yachad im kochel Yisrael Kodesh Baruch Hu Yimalei Rachim Aleim Lachim Lachim. Sorry. Linda Leah bat Blima.